Am I back? There we go. Okay. Now I'm all discombobulated because everything has to be restarted. Luckily, I don't need dock yet, so I'm not going to start that up. Let's have a look. I'll explain. I'll explain why I think it is where it is. No, no, come on. I was kind of hoping I'd get restream chat working by virtue of this is why it doesn't seem like that's going to work for me. Like it refuses to connect YouTube. We'll get there. We'll get there one day. Now's not the time to fight that. Axel chat, where are you? Well, you best not have lost code. I'll be very mad if you've lost all that code. Tasks, tests. Oh no, it's still there. Okay. Let's just get that. Let me just get Axel chat up so I can see what actually you're saying. Okay. Okay. Yeah. The blue screen was not good there. IRQ failure. Oh well. Yeah, I think my suggestion is you give the method now in the form of date time. Oh, restream bot's working though. That's kind of messy. It's working, but it's not working because it's. Oh no. Can I ignore certain messages in here now? I've got the worst of both worlds. It did update last night, actually. You are right, it did update. So, widgets appearance. Oh no. Is there a. Nope, I'm going to get every message twice because of Restream bot now. Awesome. I'm going to get lots of B-sods through that audio driver IIQ issues. Well, the good news is your chat's going to YouTube. Okay, so here's the reason why I want to do it this way. If I change the data, right? If I change the data of the sprint itself, this owns that. So even if this domain event that I wanted to publish was more rich, let's say I was doing style event sourcing style, right? This would change to this, right? And I'd update this and I'd pass in the new status, the source user identifier, and the current date time. I then have an apply that stored that applied those changes. That's how I do that in event source way. In this way, I'm changing the data and I'm sending the event so other parts of my system can react to it. If I start to make it so that this code changes those values, I lose that control, and now another handler could be made, and I say, okay, well, in this scenario, you want to update the status of the sprint to be, closed or whatever. Then someone comes along and modifies it in the code. I don't see that tracking, right? So I don't have that event. I can't react to it. So that's why this. This doesn't feel stunning, but I prefer to pass a method in. If I don't invoke it, I don't invoke it, right? I'm not making that invocation. I see what you're saying though. Just pass in the date time as an actual thing to deal with rather than passive function. Then I don't have the dependency. Um, yeah, let's do that. Date time, current date time. This still doesn't feel good because it means that the outside world has to know that what that's doing, and yeah, it doesn't feel stunning. So to do it that way, that's just that date time, right? But now I did have a different idea, but I don't know how to do it right this second. So the sprint is the update is actually wrapped in something that knows how to do those things. But yeah, three primitives is not going to be that bad. If I need to pass in more, then we've got a problem. And essentially, that's really the order they should be in because those two pieces of data matter to the object more than that. So yes, we could wrap that up into something. But it just adds more complexity right now. So those tests should pass. Feels like details big time. Again, pragmatism. There's a certain level I should go to. Certain point, the code has to do the thing without becoming overly complicated to try and solve all the problems that come with everything, right? Um, this method does what it says, right? It updates the sprint status. However, it does that is not the responsibility of anybody else. It loads the sprint, it calls update status, it passes the things that update status needs, and it will do the update status and trigger the right event, right? So in here now, sprint status updated, we can now respond to that and publish the integration for the sprint. So yeah, I'm not going to worry anymore about that one. It does what it needs to do. We've expressed that. I mean, yes, this still bothers me. This will bother me, as will this bother me. Uh, the reason I'm not making it an enum right now is because I'm not too sure um, as to what that looks like eventually. I'm still in two minds as to what these statistics are and how they work. Nice, shout out to Seto. It's got way too noisy now. So Restream bot allows me to filter messages, which is great. This app does not allow me to filter messages, so I can't filter out Restream messages. But it's restreaming. It's now sending messages back to. Actually, that. Is it sending them to Twitch? No, it's. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it is. Okay. So at least we've got the bot behavior, even if we don't have everything else. Messages, appearance. So yeah, I need them there will help, but I don't even know what they look like in the long term. So that's uh, uh, active. Let's document that properly. Start date is set to current date time. So if we change that to be, so that is because, well, hold on. The status is active. Right. So if passing it in as active, then we change the start date time and we validate that that's changed. Okay, that's good for now. So the piece we're working on. Oh, now I need Docker. Off to work. Delta, thank you very much. Thank you for the chat. And the back and forth is helpful as well. It's always good to test your own opinions on stuff, even if you might be wrong. I mean, it's good to have it tested and to ask the questions and have the conversation. It's always useful to do that sort of stuff. So don't worry about that. I appreciate it. Again, so there's no perfect path through software development. Oh no, not you. Not you. You gonna be trouble? You gonna be trouble? Um, okay. So I'm just off screen. I'm just trying to get um, the Docker services started for the application. Oh, here we go. Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? Are you gonna come say hi? You gonna come say hi? Yeah, yeah. You come say hi. What are you doing? What are you doing? No, 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 no. What we doing? It's so much fun being a parent and a dog owner. The two are not dissimilar. You listen about as much as the other one as well. Uh, Loki. Okay. There you go. You can lay there. Okay. I'm sorry. Am I not comfortable enough for you? One day TVG is going to be like, I heard you talking crap about me on the stream. Oh, child knows to do that. Yes. Yes. Then they'll ask for a cut your earnings since they're being used for content. They could ask. So Loki's decided today that my right hand, where my mouse is where his head needs to be. So we're going to have some fun with being a pillow today. I did say no. Yeah. Okay. So um, when sprint is open and status change to active, we end up with an updated sprint. It's updated as active, and the start date is set, right? So let's add another test. Okay, Loki, I've got to let your head go, bud. You lay there. I need my hand, buddy. Come on, sort it out. Um, when sprint is closed, when sprint is active, uh, and status changed to completed. No, we don't. We can't do that test yet. That's not a test we need to do. That's going to come later. Realistically, what I need to prove is that there is going to be some logic in that update to say to validate the state of the sprint can't go into an invalid state. You don't want to be able to update that. The challenge of that is we might have to validate that status in the update handler and return an invalid state. It does have a NuGet console. Are you actually looking for a console? I mean, just open a console, the terminal window. Loki, this is not convenient. This is far from convenient. Get out my coffee, dog. I don't want that end. Please, I do not know. Don't stick that end in my face. No. We we can we consider getting down, please? Um, this is the wrong end. Um, look, this is not convenient. This is far from convenient. got you. Look, Loki, come here. Come here. Okay, listen. I appreciate you, but I kind of want to do this coding thing. Is that okay? How much of Loki is visible on screen? I mean, a lot of Loki would have been visible on screen before, but hey, bud, do you want to go outside? Do you go outside and dig up some yard again? Maybe bury some things? Do you want cookies? You like cookies? Do you like big bones? Um, cookie time. Okay. Tell you what, bud. I'm gonna let you outside, and then I'm gonna get on with this. Okay? Is that fair? I will be right back, and we'll continue on this. Okay. Sorry about that. Guess who's back? I did not bring a stash of cookies in here for you. No. Go lay down. His sister went outside. He, however, wanted cookies. Okay, so the sprint is open and status changed to active. So a sprint by default is open, therefore that's the starting state. That's all we need to worry about right the second. The reason I came over to here is we created a planning item. We created a task actually for this particular piece, and I want to review that. Obviously, I've highlighted there's a UI challenge with this. So task table in view, we've done that. No, sprints table. I obviously didn't update that yesterday. Receiver to pass status from integration event, handle to capture status in table. No, it's this one. Yeah, other this one I did update. Sprints table to include status, put endpoint of task to include the status, command handler to apply status change. So we've done this piece, we've done this piece, we need to do this piece, we've done this piece, and then we need to publish integration event. So that's the next piece to do. So let's get a commit done. Introduce update status for sprint to from open to active. Now, because I'm using strings, technically everything goes there, right? I could pass in whatever I wanted to. So all statuses are covered by that. The only thing is if I set it to active, I'll change the start date time. Um, I think that's going to change later. But anyway, it doesn't really matter for right this second. It does what it needs to do. So now let's change the endpoint to sprint, and we'll make this put. Will we do it? Will we make this put? This is not a put. Stick with me on this one. This might be a bit of a strange thing to do. So we need patch public class parameters public string status. So the way I'm thinking of that, or the way I'm thinking of doing this, we'll see, is patch sprint identifier. And then what I'm thinking in here is if request.status, if not string.is nor empty request.status, then we're going to update the status. That way we can change different things. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one, but we'll see. Also, I think that ultimately, the more I'm thinking through it now, that ultimately I will let the client set the start date time. So the stuff I just did with the time provider stuff actually is kind of useless. For right now, it works, but the reality is that I really do want the client to say when the sprint should start, right? I think Jira actually lets you do that. You can say, oh, okay, it started. The way it looks is if you say the sprint started at an odd time, it looks like let's say you say it started an hour ago, it looks like you did nothing and then added all the work on the burn down chart. Because it sets the work active as of like in that sprint as of that time. So yeah, the burn down chart looks very strange. But either way, we need an I sender in here. Sender. No, I don't want. I just want the import. I hate it that if I'm typing, I lose that window of Alt Enter, and then I have to go back and use my mouse or the keyboard to navigate back onto it anyway. Yeah, Rider is now free, and it's a much better. Well, free for non-commercial, right? It's a. Oh, because I need an identifier in there. So this will be public GUID identifier get set. That can say GUID. And that should be valid. No, not just request identifier. And then who we are. That should work. I hope that Rider going free just drives up adoption of it or encourages the other editors to just like Visual Studio is just too heavy at this point. Opening Liquid Sky in Visual Studio is a whole different experience. Yeah, I've now spent years working on Rider, so I'm really comfortable with the workflows in here, and there's things it doesn't do great. recently they've added a few more, or recently I've seen a few more issues. Some of that could be down to just using the product ever increasingly, using the product in an increasingly larger project, I think is the best way I can say that. So yeah, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt, but yeah. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to say, okay, if the status is set, then we're going to call update status. This allows us to call patch and pass in the values we want to change and call the specific types. I'm not always a big fan of putting the logic like that in here, but we'll see. And it's a patch because if I did a put, I'd be updating the object, and I don't think updating the object is something I want to do. Introduce patch for updating sprint status. The last updated date will get automatically updated, by the way, by virtue of it's flagged on the interface. So if you update the object, even if you weren't to explicitly change, like let's say you did change it so you had access to a field and you were changing a field in a handler, the last updated date time is always set by an interceptor in Entity Framework. So you can't avoid updating the date time. You can avoid saying who did it. You can avoid the last updated user because I don't have user context at the database level. But you can't avoid marking it as updated. So at the very least, you'd know that it would change. So you could see some misbehavior there. So in the application now, I want to subscribe to Sprint Updated. So we get into publishers, Sprint publisher. I'm not messing around with the unit test for this. It's not. This is going to be an I event publisher. And we're going to do folder sprint updated. Did I say sprint updated or did I say status updated? Sprint status updated. So the reason these are in folders, by the way, is because I actually might want to do other things other than do integration events. I might want to do other handlers that occur once that data is stored. And these only trigger, remember, these only trigger once the database has received the update to the entity itself. So these domain events are in response to a commit to the database. They're actually inserted as events into a table, and those events are then processed in a background process and notified separately. So there can be a little bit of delay even here, but it does mean that everything, if those messages fail, it errors, it rolls back, it doesn't commit that, it tries again, it has a back off, etc. So you retain the domain events. Even going into that. So yeah. If you are new to the stream, I see the 13 viewers. If you're lurking, I appreciate the lurk. I appreciate the support. If you are new to the stream and you have questions about what I'm doing, you want to know a little bit more, please feel free to ask. I should have the software running shortly and be doing the UI pieces. But the idea of the stream is to share what I'm doing, to talk about it, to talk about the designs, the faults, the weaknesses, the strength, the benefits, all those sorts of things, all in one, to try and be transparent on that. So, yeah. So this is going to publish integration. So this is the pattern here is subscribers says these are domain event subscribers. These are things that will happen in response to events in the system. This folder name is the event that will fire. If it publishes integration, it publishes integration. If it does something else, like these don't do very much, but there are a few where in response to one event, I might actually want to publish multiple integration events. So if I change a comment on a that's assigned to a sprint, or a comment that's assigned to a planning item, I might want to publish the comment, but I also might want to publish the integration of the thing that it was commented on as well. So to say this has also changed, you might want to test. You might want to notify people that data associated with this object has changed. So, yeah. So there's multiple responses able for this. So the system is an event-driven system. Yeah. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take so that's a pretty common public abstract class integration event publisher, event publisher, public abstract system task t event t source system task publish string event source period source user identifier t source t entity cancellation token default, and that's task. Protected event publisher and that's just then publish protected override. Not saving myself anything with that. I mean, that's the signature, right? This is an I event integration event publisher sprint, right? I'm not really saving myself very much, right? I've still got to implement the thing. I've still got to do the thing. It's just more consistency. What that gives me is when I create this is a base class, right? These integrations, right, do just that, right? They just become methods in here. It just means that I'm more consistent in how I do it by creating the abstract yeah, because this task publisher, the alternative would be to create another method to make this method override, but then I'd repeat that in there and there. So this just means that I could now create Let's keep going. Let's just do that, and it's fine. Move to folder. So what I do is when I've got something like that, first I move it locally into infrastructure before I decide that it belongs in the larger system as a thing. Before figuring that out, at least if I keep it here, I can reference it, right? What this gives me is consistency in the method, I suppose. It gives me a bit more structure there. If I create one that doesn't have to be shared, like in this instance, task created and task updated both publish the integration event. How they get it is almost identical. Oh, it is identical in this case, right? But the event that it gets it off is different, and it might be more information. Right, task created by identifier, and in here, notification.source user identifier. I don't have the updated there. Actually, do I? No, I didn't capture who did it in that one, so that's something I probably want to turn back around and change afterwards. I've started to trap that a little bit more. So yeah, what I'm going to do here, so they have overrides. Again, if you are watching and you have questions about what I'm doing, if you think I don't like that, please feel free. Please share. So we're going to cut that out, and then we're going to make this inherit from sprint publisher, right? And that's going to take publisher in there because we're going to pass the dependency down, right? And then we're going to do publish, await publish, and this is going to take that. And that's sprint dot created by user identifier. We're being inconsistent, it looks like there. It cleans that up. And now in here, I could paste that, make that async. And this can be sprint. I can import that. And that can just be event source. It should be good. Parameter publisher is captured into the state of the enclosing type, and its value is also passed to the base constructor. The value might be captured by the base class as well. Yeah, I get it. So it's just warning me that that's happening. Field can be made read only. That's fair. So now this one doesn't have to be as complicated because this is sprint updated notification. That's kind of worded, but we'll deal with it. Sprint status update. Anil848, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome on in. So again, we are going to sprint status updated, sprint status updated. It's almost identical. So let's take that, and then the only difference is this becomes that, and everything else should work the same. Sprint. Did I not have that? I thought I had that. In the application, we have sprint update sprint status, updated by user identifier. Yeah, we do have it. Yeah. Sprint dot. One way I've done that in the past, and what I'm trying to do is I'm still trying to figure out how I actually want to pass user information around the system, when I want to pass it, how I want to pass it. So this domain event here, I could do GUID source user identifier, right? That is who did the thing, and that way in here, that would be notification dot source user identifier, right? That's who created the notification. That's a way. I could also pull it off the sprint and default it that way. Let's go with this for right this second. Source user identifier, yeah. So that will work. Also, I do need to make that test past that. So start date is set. What I didn't test in here is fact sprint status updated event is queued, and that again would be sprint dot domain events dot of type sprint status updated dot count. E goes to e dot identifier equals sprint identifier and e dot, right, is 1. So we want to validate the event passes. There you go. We didn't validate that before. So now when we publish that event, once that data is saved to the database, the event will publish locally, and that will trigger the domain event to publish, which will allow us to tell the rest of the system. By the way, the sprint was updated. Okay, so let's do that. Publish integration event for sprint when sprint starts updated. Yeah, push. So we've got this, we got this, we got this, we got this, right? Let's start this up and show. Let's see if well, this isn't going to do anything specifically yet because I haven't hooked up the code, but at least I can look up, I can actually use the UI and demonstrate that piece. So, and again, if you are new and you're interested in what I'm doing, you're more than welcome to ask questions. I am happy to talk about the software and show what we're doing. I'm not just sat here for not just sat here just so I can just type and stuff all the time. So that's starting up. Let's open up Chrome. Might as well get that ready. And build Liquid Sky. Localhost 4200. Oh, that's just taking its sweet time. started. So we sign into Liquid Sky. Give that a second to load. So we're working on sprint activity planning item. And we're on specifically, I should be able to start the sprint. So as a development lead, I should be able to start an open sprint. When an open sprint is selected on the board screen, a button should appear in the top right of the screen reading start. We're going to work on that in a second. If the start date of the sprint is in the future, it should warn me starting the sprint will set the start date to the current date time. We've done that behavior on the back end. We've not done the UI. If the start date of the sprint is in the past, it should warn me that the original start date was X, but starting the sprint now will set the date. So same behavior, just a different warning. That's fine. So let's go see the tasks. So we go to the sprint board and getting sprint started. So here we go. Here's our sprint board. So we do have an issue in that we can't see most of the detail. We have no information on these for just the title. Display the start date, end time, add status to sprint from command. We create these tasks to highlight the fact that these tasks are all from one requirement for the most part, right? So they all have a base requirement of that start, I believe, or most of them do. So if we go back to the planning board, why isn't this showing tasks? Most concerning. This should be showing the number of tasks outstanding, and these were created off of this thing. So that's a bit of a bug. So this should be indicating, oh, by the way, there's 3 tasks here, there's 2 tasks there, etc. So that's something I'm gonna have to look at why it's not doing that. But add status to sprint from command is the one we just did. So we just did this one, ready for development. So now that was in progress. And then we've technically completed that one, right? So we've done that one. So the next one would be to integrate the UI. So we want the UI to do this thing right now, where when we see the sprint, we want to see the start button and do that. So update UI to start sprint. So we're going to start working on this piece. Again, I'm not branching off these. It's going to take me way more time to try and do branches off of these things than it is to do the actual work right this second. So it'll just make my workflow slower and messier. I only have 2 hours plus a day to work on this most days. So I'm just trying to be efficient on that time, being that if you see me doing PRs on the stream most of the time, that's less engaging than the code. Okay, so let's go and do the UI side of this thing now. So the idea is that once we do this, if it's in an open status, we should be able to hit start. So let's figure out, do we actually have last week of using banana cake pop? Next week we're going to update to use nitro. We need the credentials. So get sprints. So we don't I don't think we have the status of a sprint yet. Yeah. So we can't do that story. Right, we can't do that. We've got to integrate. What do you think you're doing? Please leave that. Thank you. Good boy. There you go. Good boy. Thank you for dropping it when I asked you to. I turned around and he had a box in his mouth. God, I don't need to return my Fitbit. Yeah. You got tails. So if you haven't been in the stream before, I have two dogs, Loki and Taylor, who sit with me or on me sometimes. So I apologize for that. Okay, so we could try to do the update UI, but we don't have the status in here yet, right? Hey, Radio Patrick. It's going well. How are you? So I think we need to do integrate the view for the status. So we need the status to exist inside of the view component so we can actually update the UI, right? Now, again, if I was developing this independently, I could have someone working on the GraphQL backend and doing the integration at the same time as I'm doing the publishing. I could have someone working on the UI and assuming it would be there. But right now, it's just more practical for me to go through the pieces. Otherwise, I'm going to miss something if I try and work on them out of sequence. So let's go and do the integration side of things. Let's stop that running. So yeah, we're going to do integrate view for status. The pink badges with the light blue backgrounds on this blue are kind of growing on me. It's not what I want it to look like in the end, but it doesn't really upset me, the color balance. So let's get to the view side. So for anyone who hasn't seen it before, I'll share the diagram of what I'm talking about here when I say the view side. This is a common diagram if you are in the stream. So the piece I've just been working on is in here, right? I've been tasks, as it's called right this second, is sprints, tasks. It's the actual workflow of things that developers are going to work upon. And that is all contained in here. So the Angular client, when it needs to update something, it sends it to the API. The API does the work it needs to do, publishes an event. The integration event is then consumed by other pieces. Right now, for the UI to know that the status of the sprint is open, active, closed, etc., it's going to need to receive that in its view. So when this integration status is the integration of the sprint is published with its attached status now, which I didn't do, by the way. We need to fix that. The view will consume that, store that, and now that's available to the client. It does mean you end up with eventual consistency in that the backend and the read database won't always agree at that moment in time, but you should expect them to update pretty quickly. Okay. How's your project been this week, Patrick? I didn't see. Did I see? I didn't see you streaming yesterday. But then again, I probably was falling asleep as well. So, and I was tired. Okay, so we need to publish integration. So when in the application, when we do the publishing, this is where pulling these things together now, no matter which integration, no matter which domain event triggers the publish, the same publisher is called. So this is where this is now helpful. So on the sprint integration event now, I need to publish the status. Right. You're an idiot. Well, I'm glad I can't use the Fitbit bands because you ate them. No, you don't get a reward for that one because you were chewing something like that. Shouldn't we do that, should we? Okay, go lay down. So the status is going to be there. I'm not going to default it because it will always be set by the thing that publishes it. Okay, Fitbit. No, he ate the band. I can't wear the bands that come with the default with the Fitbit because they I react to them apparently. So it was in the box, and then his sister got the box, and I didn't see the band. What are you chewing now? Oh dear. Oh well. Oh well. It is what it is right in a second. If you got the Fitbit, I'd be a little bit more upset. Yeah. Um, having dogs sure does seem like a great time. I would not see them hurt. I would not see them homeless, but I would not have dogs again if I had the choice. Oh my. What are you chewing? He's laying on the floor away from me, holding his paws together over whatever he's chewing so I can't see it or get to it. He knows he's not meant to be chewing something. Dogs are a lot smarter than we might give them credit for, and they understand a lot more language, as I'm certain of it. Okay. If you like puzzle games, by the way, Fullbox's demo is up on Steam. And it was in the Steam Next Fest, and it is a very addictive little game. There's a few games, I mean, there's a few games like it, but it stands out. It's a very good game. I may or may not have been hooked on it for an hour the other day, just sat there and then realized that I needed to get on with stuff. Okay, so we're going to publish the sprint integration event. It has status now. There we go. So we can guarantee that part. Now, so foundation here. Foundation is the library that contains the events. It's a separate repository. It's shared between Control Tower, Liquid Sky, and events and stuff get put in there for now. Ultimately, I do want to use Kafka schema. Yeah, Kafka schema. Sorry. But that's a bit more of an investment in time and effort to set up to get all hooked into that. So because with Kafka schema, what you do is you say, hey, here's my object. This is what it's going to look like. Here's the version that I can publish. When you change that, you publish a new schema, and the consumers will only consume messages from Kafka that they know about their schema. So you can actually tell it, oh, if a message of this schema comes along, you can process it, but otherwise you have to be, you have to know about this particular schema. So if you publish breaking changes, you can actually avoid consumers doing that. 1 second. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, you can use Kafka schema to protect the messages and to say, okay, well, if a message comes along of this type, you have to know about it as a consumer. You have to know. You have to explicitly have this version. But it is an investment in time that I have not had yet been able to do. So for right now, integration events are stored in the foundation library under a separate DLL, so that they can be consumed from other services. If a consumer hasn't been updated, so let's say I change the way that I publish tenant, or I change the way I publish sprint, and one of the dependent systems is consuming messages, it won't understand how to decode that. because it might not have updated it, and then it will crash. So it does mean that I have to pass that dependency down to anyone else using it. It makes a mess from a testing perspective. If you're trying to test a new feature in one component, but you've got, let's say you've got a testing environment. If you're trying to test one component, you can potentially break other components in your test environment. So it's just something you have to be very aware of once you start publishing messages back and forth. That there is some distributed systems don't automatically make everything bulletproof. You do have to work on that piece. So yeah, include status in the integration event. We'll publish. Sprint. No, it's bulletproof. Sorry. Sorry to burst the bubble, but it's not. Yeah, you might hope. You might hope. Okay. So let's go and get the view side of this done as quickly as we can. So from the view side, when an event is published, an integration event is published to Kafka, we have what you'll see is called receivers in the system. Receivers are a wrapper around a Kafka consumer that I've built. The reason being, it just helps with the abstraction, and it also helps with just cleaning up that stuff in the background. The configuration is all standardized and handled, and the logging and stuff can be dealt with later. It also differentiates a Kafka consumer from a mass transit consumer, because we do have service bus consumers as part of the system as well. So from a glance, if you say, or if when you're talking about it, if you say consumer, consumer has two meanings. So if you see receivers and consumers, they're both consumers. Receivers is just a wrapper around a Kafka consumer. So it made sense to keep its name distinct. So now the update sprint command here, view application tests, infrastructure receivers, concerning sprint integration event received. Now in the update sprint right this second, as we navigate through the source code of the there, we don't have the concept of update. This is the first time we need to introduce update. So this is and sprint does not exist. We're gonna have failures. It's fine. When sprint, actually, let's do this. Concerning sprint integration event, sprint integration. Let's move that in there. This way we can tell the story a little bit more cleanly. When sprint does not exist. When sprint exists. Right. So the first one is we need to change this for status. So our view side of things does not have status yet, right? Because we haven't actually done anything. So we need to make that understand status. Right now, there's some, we'll say, blurred lines here. View is an absolutely overloaded term in this design. I could call it GraphQL, but that would be a lie because then we're just saying what the technology is, and if we decide it's not GraphQL, you got to change everything anyway. So that's a mess. Ultimately, this is the read side of, or the query side of the CQRS component, the design of the system, right? This is the query components. This is the side that the user is going to interact with primarily from the client side perspective. It's the client interface, it's whatever it is, it's called view. However, there's two sides to the view. Right? There's the part where we need to update the data in our database, because again, we have independent databases. One database server right now, because that would be even messier. So we have independent databases, so we have to update the data in the back end, and then we also have to expose the data in a view. So view is a very overloaded term. However, we're going to start with the update. So we need to capture status. So public string status. This will always be set by the integration event. So I should not make any effort to default anything here. I don't want to assume a status. The status will be fed to us. So now in the view here, I'm going to go and modify a sprint and add status. Column status and varchar 50, not null. So the challenge with this is it can't be null, but it can't default, right? But I have to have it do something. So I'm going to default it to open for now. That way, everything is now populated. Let's see if I can remove that default. I don't know if I can. There you go. So we want that. So right now, again, our scripts, view, sprints. Let's put that in there. Now our status is captured. Again, no defaults, it's fine. Now this can be touched, so we can say and x.status equals expected status. Let's create those values. Private read-only string expected status equals so the status does not matter here. It can be whatever it wants to be. I'm not trying to document the use of that field here. I'm trying to document that it is a value that is passed in, and whatever we pass in should be accepted. So I don't want to make this. I don't want to make this talk about open or active or completed. There's no business logic here. It's just data. So that's a very important thing to understand. Status, right? We'll pass that in, and then again here, this is the event we should receive. Status equals expected status. So we're validating that we send, that we invoke the handler, and that's all we tested. Interesting. This was a unit test that I completely failed to do. So, fact, no, update sprint handler is invoked. Oh, I'm testing the receiver. That's the receiver. That's why. I'm an idiot. That's this test when sprint does not exist. That's fine. Okay. I actually did do it a bare minimum. This doesn't matter because the receiver doesn't care whether it exists. It's not checking, so it's a lie to do this. So when sprint integration event received. So this is correct. This does go there. This does get removed. We're now validating that we're sending that thing through, so that's fine. Now this one is broken because we're not passing status. So now status private read only string expected status equals expected status. Yeah. If it matters in the unit test what the data is, then yeah, it should represent it. But it's also worth not trying to align the data in unit test to real, because then it kind of, that again, if you're using the test to tell a story, which was I reading the story then I would have realized, by the way, then you do want to be careful about what information you put in here. You want to make sure IDs are distinct and far apart, that values are not silly names or whatever. Just because at a glance like, it's useful to see that string, if that string is output somewhere or debugged out somewhere. Oh, that's name. Oh, that's expected status. So that's what I'm expecting to see. So if this value got assigned to something, you'd know that this was, or incorrectly assigned, you'd know that it was wrong. So s.status equals expected status. So this should fail because I've passed it in and I've told it I expect it, but I've not actually done anything to set it. So here we're saying, okay, we expect to acquire a tenant ID, we acquire a user ID, we expected the sprint to match, but we don't because it wasn't set. So now in here, if we go and set status equals command.status, yeah, an ad is about to start. Just in case. However, it might be a good time to start to finish up because I'm not going to get much further with this right this second. Let's make that pass. Hello, bud. Go on, go lie down. So we have it passing the status through. The next step is when the sprint does exist. Sprint does exist. We obviously don't want to do certain things. We don't need to acquire things. We don't need to do whatever. So when the sprint exists, sprint is updated. Fact, I don't think there's much actually. Requirement is updated. Yeah, we just need to validate that sprint was updated in that case. In this case, we need to validate other things happened. I'm not sure how I feel about validating the negative, right? I want to validate that we didn't acquire a user. I want to validate that we didn't acquire whatever. Now, acquire updated user ID. Update user ID is acquire. It's called. So we do want to validate that because we actually do want to validate that user is pulled through. Acquire is create or update. Essentially, it's just go and get me the ID for that thing. How you do it is not my problem. It's your problem. That way we can mock that piece and we don't have a lot of queries everywhere that dependent. We've got a nice, clean way of doing things. Okay, I'm going to finish up there though. Do not forget that it is Friday. One Lion stream on Fridays is Community Day. If you like .NET content, if you like a more relaxed environment, then One Line Stream is very worthwhile checking out. On Fridays, Community Day, Discord gets opened up and people can drop into the chat and have a conversation, and that is just a great place to be. Thanks for stream as always, Mojo. Thank you very much for stopping by. Can't do the shout now, can I? But Mojo is also a streamer who has yet to find a pattern, but we'll get there. A schedule, but we'll get there, I'm sure. Mojo is also assisting me with some stuff on Liquid Sky. Have a good weekend, Rambler Geek. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me. We're going to raid Andres. They are building game engine today, which is awesome. So thank you very much for joining me. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you again soon. Bye all.